Welcome to the Trauma Survivorhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, an IFS-informed trauma recovery coach. This show features interviews from guests all around the world as they share their impactful stories and deliver hope and inspiration through their personal post-traumatic growth. We explore and discuss resources and coping strategies to support the survivor community to thrive in their own healing journeys. Enjoy. So welcome back to the Trauma Survivorhood podcast. I have with me today Marina Yanay-Triner. Marina teaches body-based somatic tools, mindful self-compassion, and nervous system regulation, emotional healing techniques that will awaken the sense of purpose and aliveness. She says, because of my life history, I was supposed to live a life of pain, regret, and disconnection. I was supposed to have a career that didn't spark joy, just something to make a living. Trauma runs in my family, she says, the Holocaust, violence, war, financial trouble, and poverty. For her, it also runs in her personal life, moving multiple times as a refugee, sexual assaults, and emotional neglect. And yet through it all, here Marina is through the pain and working through her own triggers. She says, I am now able to keep coming back to deep aliveness, deep presence, building a thriving business and supporting thousands. Marina, we are so blessed to have you here. Thank you so much. You say on your website that you are a light worker and you've obviously been through a lot of darkness. So tell us a little bit more about your journey. How did you get here?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Where do I start? I think you covered a lot of it, but yeah, I feel like in this point in my life, I think a lot about my grandma. She's still alive. She has been through a lot. She was, as a tiny little baby in a labor camp in the Holocaust, and then her mother died a day after it was liberated. And she just lived a lot of loss and loneliness. And that really, like, when you're in that survival state, it's really hard to feel those emotions. And if you don't feel them, they get passed down in the generation. So that's definitely something that was passed down to my mom and then to me. And those dynamics kind of moved into the relations in my family, in my immediate family, but then also like moving a lot was a lot of stress. So the emotional neglect was a big part of it because the family was in so much distress that there was really no space for expressing emotions, for validating emotions. And then when I was in high school, that's actually like the big trauma that I think of, that I used to think of when I didn't see like all the background other stuff. I was in an abusive relationship emotionally and sexually. And I really recognize now, that it made sense to get into that because of all the other things. So I spent a lot of time just healing that, working on myself, and really like feeling more empowered and changing the way that I am in relationships. And then it was so fascinating to me that I just really wanted to support other people in this journey, because a lot of the tools that I came across actually brought up more shame for me, a lot of the personal growth tools. And so the tools that I have found that really, really work and I love so much, I really love to teach them.
So what are these body-based somatic tools and how have they been so instrumental? It sounds like also in your personal healing and in your professional work that you do. So what does that
Yeah.
look like for a client, for yourself?
Yeah. So, I actually came into like the personal development world first. And in the personal development world, it's really like a lot of it is your mind, like think differently or change this belief or do these affirmations and then everything's going to change. And I tried so much of that. And I feel like now I can do affirmations because I actually do them from the body. So it's very different. At that point, I feel like when you're a trauma survivor and you're really disconnected from your body because it's the place where all the unsafety is, and you're like, I don't want to feel that, like, I don't want to go there. And you're just doing things from your mind. You're only accessing like a very small amount of yourself. So you're really not creating a lot of change, in your patterns and like your stucknesses. And I came to this because I was really stuck in my first business, and I had a business coach who just like kept witnessing, I'm stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck, and was like, okay, just sit with your body. And I was like, what? Excuse me? What body? I'm thinking of strategies. I'm like planning. I'm overthinking all day long. And I like didn't even know I had a body. So that was kind of like the into it. And then I found a somatic experiencing therapist who really was able to walk me through what it's like to it's so fascinating because I say, and I've heard this before, it's not my invention, but like the same emotions that are happening in trauma can happen not in trauma when you're safe. So the only thing that changes is like now you're safe and you're accessing all those emotions that you felt when you were in danger. And then you see like, okay, your body feels like, okay, the danger is over. So you can't really think the danger is over. You have to feel that the fear is there, the anger is there, the sadness is there, but okay, now the danger is over. So that's really like where I find the most healing. And yeah, those are the body-based tools. It's about really regulating your nervous system, meaning your nervous system going from really activated and anxious all day long, or like really overwhelmed and shut down, and into being present. So present with whatever your experience is, connected to your body and connected to other people. Rather than, again, like overwhelmed or shut down, and then being able to feel all the emotions from that presence, from that safety, is the most healing thing.
Yeah, that processing, that finishing through of what the emotion wanted to accomplish when it was there. Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's hard work. It's a lot of hard work, but that is what we do, right? Like the body-based stuff is so important. You say on your site, I love the way that you say this. I want to read it. So it says, give yourself full permission to celebrate. And you have that written on your site. Give yourself full permission to celebrate. And I love this because I always am preaching, celebrating those small wins, reaffirming your nervous system that this is like a small win. I call it a jubilation moment. Just have you had a minute to let this sit? What does that look like? How can you, if someone's really struggling to celebrate the things, how do you encourage that, especially in the composition of the body there?
Yeah, well, there's a few things. One is about pleasure, just the idea of pleasure, that we think that feeling sad or feeling scared is really hard. And we forget that feeling pleasure is really hard for a lot of us. So it's like, how long can you stay with pleasure in your body, with that sensation? Like you look at a beautiful flower or you look at a beautiful whatever, and you're feeling that pleasure in your body. How long can you stay with that? Because so many of us had childhoods that were so chaotic and so crazy, that it just feels threatening, because our body's like, okay, what's next? Where's the threat? It can't be this good for this long. So that's something that I also practice myself, and then also with clients. And then the simple thing of like giving yourself, sometimes when we work on these goals that are like more emotional and stuff like that, it's hard to measure, right? Because it's not like, oh, but now I'm making more money. It's like, no, now I can be with sadness and it's easier. So I kind of have my clients give themselves a score from 1 to 10 of their goals, like whatever their goals are, they give themselves a score. And then we look back months later and they can see the difference. So I don't tell them what their old one was. I'm just like, okay, what's your new one? And then they can really see, okay, well, it has changed. Wow. So we humans kind of never stop and celebrate that it's easier for us to be with sadness, or it's easier for me to speak my truth to someone, or whatever it is. I speak up to my boss, or I tell my boyfriend that wasn't cool, or whatever it is. Like it's easier for me to do that now. So that's like a moment of jubilation, like you said. I love that.
So you talk a lot about being empathic and utilizing being an empath. And I find it really interesting because a lot of the, quote unquote symptoms of what it would feel like to be an empath, like the ways that characteristics, can also sometimes be a trauma survivor's coping skills, right? Hypervigilance and, people pleasing, just trying to stay in the moment with people to see if they're safe. So how do you know the difference between being empathic and having and maybe an unhealthy coping skill that's actually utilizing this brain space?
That's such a brilliant question. And I've like had these conversations with so many of my highly sensitive friends or empath friends, even autistic friends. Like, do you think that it's a trauma response that we have, or were we born like that? And I think it doesn't really truly matter. I'm just curious about it. But like what you said about the symptoms, I'm going to go back to the body because two people can do the same thing. For example, we can be really, really helpful to someone. Like you and I could be really helpful to someone. We could say the same thing, and on the outside, it looks the same. But inside, we have a different energy. So maybe your energy is regulated, meaning you're present, you're just wanting to do it. It feels good. Your body feels connected. You can feel the sensations in your body. You can feel, the other connected to the other person. Whereas for me, I feel a sense of overwhelm, or I feel really anxious. And that is the energy that is driving my support of someone else. Yeah. That's where I know that's a trauma response. That's not an authentic core self. That is the trauma part of me that's being activated by something. So that's where I would get curious. Okay, well, what is activating it? What does this resemble? And then working through the body to regulate that.
Wow, that's a great answer, right? Because I'm thinking of like that people pleasing or fawning, or where you feel like you need to do this to earn your worth, and it's a different chaotic energy that's rising up because there's an anxiety of, if I don't per se help this person right now, oh, I'm not going to be lovable. I'm not going to be worth anything. So great point. I love bringing it back to the body. That's really important to recognize what's the intention behind that. Because I do believe that really highly sensitive people are so needed on this earth, but we need them in that genuine capacity for love, not just doing it out of a sense of duty or obligation because they're actually in a fear or trauma response at the time. So, yes. Amen.
And then they get burnt out, they get burnt out, they get resentful. Like there's all these things that come along because what's being activated is a very draining energy. If you're in that energy all the time, you're going to get so burnt out.
Yes. I've heard said with like that more empathic energy, because it also can be very tiring because you're still giving, you're still doing, you're still reading auras, you're seeing different energies from people, but you would know when to say no, and you wouldn't feel guilty about saying no because it's not a trauma response. You're going, you know what? I can't help you today. I can't have this conversation today. I need to rest, because they know they have to power up because they know that they have this special superhero gift to give to the world, and it's not in service of the world but against themselves. It's part of an ecosystem that works for them. You offer a free online masterclass, right? And it lists out the different topics. I haven't been able to do it yet, but I'm waiting. I'm excited. You have one that's called healing versus regulation as a topic, and I'm very interested in that. Is there a difference in regulating? Is regulation not part of healing? Is healing, can you be healed without having regulation? What is that topic? I know there's a free masterclass, guys, so go check it out. But what is that topic about?
Yeah, I love that topic. It's fascinating. So, if let's say someone is just constantly doing somatic regulation techniques. So every time they notice, okay, I'm really, really overwhelmed, or I'm really, really anxious, I'm going to use these somatic tools to bring myself back to presence. So those tools can be, there's so many, and I teach them in the masterclass, a few of them. But for example, the butterfly hug. That's a technique from EMDR. Sounds like you're familiar with that. So let's say we do that, and that's wonderful because what that's doing is it's basically teaching our nervous system. It's kind of like if someone had a terrible accident and they don't know how, they can't walk anymore.
Right.
They know how to walk, right? They know, like their body knows, but they kind of have to do different things, like, I don't know, physical therapy things to teach their body how to walk again. But their body already knows. It's almost like to remind their body how to walk again. So that's the same thing with the nervous system. It's like we're doing all these things that are reminding our nervous system what to do when there's a threat, and then the threat is gone. So automatically I get into that state, the anxiety state, because I want to fight or flee the threat. And then I get out of it, right? Like if I am a lion and a lion is always a bad example. If I am an antelope and I see the lion and I get really, mobilized to fight the lion or to flee, and then it's gone, then I'm fine. I don't sit there. I don't feel like I'm so overwhelmed. What do I do? I'm just like, I'm done. The line's gone.
It's gone.
So that's what the regulation is for. It's teaching your nervous system to complete that cycle faster. Okay. Not to never get into the cycle, but to complete it faster. Okay. Because we always need to be able to fight or flee. Like that's a really good thing. Right. But then if I have trauma from the past, that's making my nervous system in a sense like not as efficient, because it's like making my nervous system get stuck in overwhelm or in freeze or in fight or flight anxiety for a really long time. So my nervous system is not as efficient. Yeah. And I'm just regulating. I'm not going to go deep to actually heal the underlying cause of what's making my nervous system get stuck in those states. So if I want to actually work on that, I need to feel the emotions that are left over from that trauma. And that's why I have these two like different terms that I use. And I know other practitioners too, of like regulating and then healing, which is feeling that sadness that you have left over, maybe when you were 2 years old or whatever, that was trapped in your body. And then once you feel that, your nervous system is like relieved a little bit. It can move more flexibly.
I heard a little bit of IFS language earlier. Do you practice IFS? Okay, because you were talking about like being in yourself and then that part. So I'm going to add a question. I know we didn't talk about this one, but I'm really curious to hear in the IFS world, with someone with so much complex generational trauma, obviously being a Holocaust survivor of a Holocaust survivor, right? Can you speak a little bit onto generational trauma and the generational parts that sometimes happen with this? I mean, obviously the Holocaust, the one of the greatest tragedies that we've ever seen in human history. So, while you're here, can I pick your brain a little bit about generational trauma?
Absolutely. I love this topic. So for anyone who doesn't know internal family systems, I wasn't trained in like the base program of it, but I was trained in somatic IFS, which was all about how do we feel those parts. So basically everything that is happening in your body, whether it's like an emotion or a resistance to an emotion, all of that is a part. And it's really, I love it so much. I think it's such helpful language for all survivors, because you can see and feel that there is a bigger self of you and then there is the part. So with generational trauma, it's the same, because we can carry parts from the previous generations, right? And I've done quite a bit of work with this. I actually find that I carry a lot of my grandmother's emotions and traumas. Her financial trauma, I carry it big time. So I've done a lot of rituals around feeling her, like just being with her and feeling her, all in my own practice, like not actually with my grandma. Yeah. And just imagining that this part of us is kind of like flowing into the earth. Like it's exiting from her and from me, and her just letting me know, like, you don't need to carry this for me anymore. Wow. So it's really, really powerful. And I actually had a session with Mark Wolin. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, the author? Oh, that's so neat. Wow.
He's
Yes, I have heard.
amazing. I highly recommend. He has like an insane wait list, but it was
Yes.
so incredible. And he basically told me that my grandma, and this is not, everyone repeats this, so it must be true, right? My grandma basically unconsciously decided, not, not in her mind, but unconsciously decided not to feel because it was too much. She had too much loss in her life. So then my mother basically received all these emotions, but my mother is super highly sensitive, like bothered by everything, sounds, lights, everything. And I was kind of the filter. So I was always like, in a way, my mother's therapist. And so basically I took that on to me. So the like close relationships can be super overwhelming to me, for example, because for me closeness is like take on all my issues, like be my therapist. So I had done, with this background and this understanding, like this piece of it, there's so many pieces, but I've done like a lot of work on just that boundary and like not taking on others' emotions and not feeling responsible for it and not feeling like I need to fix or save anyone. And then again, the financial stuff as well from Mark's book. Like Mark's book is so brilliant, and he has specific exercises that I did. And then, Mark is actually, I might get this wrong, but he's the president of the Family Constellations Association of California,
Oh, wow.
which is, have you heard of family constellations? Oh my
I know
God.
like the constellation, like we call it like the solar system and like the different constellations within your family, right? I know stuff about it, but I've never heard of the actual family constellations.
It's mind blowing. So I wasn't trained in this. I just experienced it myself, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get this training because it was just so powerful. So essentially, I did this on Zoom where I just expressed something that I was struggling with,
Yeah.
and then, which was around having children, and then like the decision about it.
Right.
And then the facilitator basically asked me, in this case, a lot of times you play yourself in the constellation, like you are you, and then you assign to other people to play different people in your family. So it can be like my grandma, my mom. So in this instance, I played my grandma. So I like embodied my grandma, and then another girl played me. And it's so mind blowing because immediately she was like, I feel two and I can't grow up. Like I feel like I'm two. And it's like you just have a feeling in your body. Like you suddenly feel like that other person that you've never met before. And what I could feel is all of my grandma's loneliness. And it was just so intense. Like I felt it everywhere in my body. And I was like, oh my God, now I understand why I feel this, all the time. It's so incredible. Yeah, it was really mind blowing. And then we kind of had this dialogue, me as my grandma with the other girl who was me, with my grandfather who was someone else, and we all like dialogued, and it was very, very healing and amazing and really mind blowing.
Unbelievable. Wow, that is so powerful. I will say that I know they're doing a lot of work in the epigenetics world. Mark's book, it didn't start with me, right? Is his biggest one. I know he has a few others, but um in the epigenetics and all of that, the children of Holocaust survivors, I know is like a big kind of a kind of a case study. Like not to, I don't know if that, I hope that's not offensive, but the case study of you guys like feeling all of these things coming through, but also in your own human experience on your time on earth, you have also been a refugee. And this adds to this probably is just even more impactful for you. So I love that you have moved into some of Mark's teaching and work, and being able to work with him personally is amazing because it's really fascinating, the dynamic. I know a lot of people who have political asylum here in this country. I've met several of them, and it's just fascinating, to never think about never going home, and they can't see their parents, and they can't even talk to them because they've come here saying we can't go home or we're going to die. So they know that even if their parents die, they cannot even go to a funeral for 5 minutes
Oh,
because political asylum is a very serious thing in the United States. So I know it has been probably very helpful to the research for you to be able to partake in some of these programs. So I appreciate you sharing your story.
And I also heard something really fascinating about Ireland, where I think it was like the fifth generation or something of after the potato famine in Ireland, their digestive systems were perfectly fit for a famine, like to survive a famine.
Wow, five
So mind blowing.
generations. Oh my word.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
so
think
powerful.
that, for me, that's really wonderful to think about because it's all about survival. It's like our body is meant to survive. So it creates all these strategies, whether it's you understand it through IFS and having protectors and having parts of yourself that are protecting you from feeling something that's too intense or too big, or you think of it as like your digestive system changes and all these like physical, emotional, psycho spiritual like shifts that happen.
Yeah.
They're not against you. Essentially, they're actually for you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Before you go, I always like to ask our last question. In your personal journey, which I know has been lifelong for you, how have you gotten to this place in your healing? What have been some of the most, even just one, two, couple of them, biggest, most impactful, helpful resources for you in your healing?
Finding good practitioners.
Mm.
That's really, really huge. I'm a huge advocate for like not healing alone. And they are out there and just being like really discerning, who do you feel safe with? Like at this point, I have my team. I just like, no, I don't want to do this stuff alone. We are not meant to. Finding really beautiful community as well. And somatic experiencing, you mentioned it. It's brilliant. It is just Peter Levine, man. I owe him so much. And he's been a mentor and a teacher of mine as well. So I'm really grateful for that. And IFS, I think, is really wonderful. Attachment theory, like all of these tools are really powerful and really, really understanding that the more we can be with our body with compassion, because I still forget, I'm a human. Even this morning, I was trying to resist an emotion. So the more we can actually, even with our posture, with our whole body, just surrender to what's happening and get curious about it instead of fighting it. That's where like all the healing happens.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. Thank you for being a light worker. Thank you for being such a inspiration and filling us with hope on your journey. Tell our listeners where they can find you. I've already mentioned that you have the free masterclass, but let us know where we can find you and reach out to you, and then I'll link all that up in the show notes.
So Instagram is a great place. I post very actively on there. It's at marina.y.t. And then I have my own podcast. I just started it really recently, but I'm just having so much fun. And for me, I really like long form content and I can, my episodes are about 30 minutes or so. So it's like a really good length. But I can also go deeper and it's called Deep Within.
Deep Within. And are you on all the directories, Apple, Google, iHeart, all those
Yes.
ones? Excellent. Excellent. And I'll have your website there so that they can find your masterclass. And if you want to see beautiful pictures of Costa Rica, definitely check out her Instagram. Not only is it amazing content as far as the healing world for trauma survivors, but you get beautiful backgrounds while you're watching it. You are living the dream down there now in Costa Rica. So enjoy it. Next time I go down there,
Thank
I'm going to
you.
have to find you.
Yes, please definitely let me know. I actually have also an upcoming retreat in March. So for anyone who wants to experience healing, deep, deep, deep healing in Costa Rica, that is for you.
Oh my goodness. You had me at deep healing in Costa Rica. Put those together. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I will link all that up in the show notes and I'll put a little special tab. I think you did have a tab for your retreat there on the site as well. So I will link that up and we'll get this info out to the people. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank
We really appreciate it.
you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening or watching this episode of Trauma Survivorhood. For more info, show notes, and links, check out the episode guide below. Until next time, be well, survivors.